is Jenny Kirk, and welcome along to the channel. We're going to be doing a box opening and review today, and we've got one of the Bachmann Class 101 diesel multiple units. So without further ado, let's get on in there and take a closer look. So what we've got here is Bachmann catalogue number 32-287, and this is the Class 101 in a two-car unit in blue-grey. Now, the Class 101 diesel multiple units, they were built by Metro Camel in Birmingham, and that was done between 1956 and 1959, and this was after construction of a series of prototype units which proved quite successful. In fact, the 101 itself was so successful, it was the second-to-last first-generation unit that was still in frontline service by the time they were the last were withdrawn on the 24th of December 2003. The oldest of them still in service was 47 years old, so that's quite a good innings. Now, tops number 101, however, it wasn't quite so clear-cut. When they were first introduced and given tops numbers, 101s were those with the AEC engines, 102 with the Leyland engines, so bear with me here, it does get even more complicated. Then we also had some different variants between having either trailer seconds with lavatory or trailer composite with lavatory, etc., etc. And they could have been any of Class 144, 147, 162, 168, and finally 171. However, just to simplify the system, they were all later classified together as 101. In frontline service, they ended their years latterly around the Manchester area based in Longside, and the photographs which I took at the time in the late 1990s shown here. Not the best of pictures because I was using a digital camera, a very early digital camera. Now, as we open up the box, it's a pretty standard Bachmann first generation DMU box. We have this slightly heavier card outer, which is pretty good actually, because if it was in the same card as the inners were in, it would be a little bit fragile and very prone to ripping. So quite a nice heavy feel to that cardboard there. On the back, we've got a little bit of information covering the history of the class, some of the details which I've already gone through. And inside we find the pretty standard Bachmann boxes that are used for locomotives these days. So got the cardboard outer and the plastic inner. If we slide all that out, what we can see here is we've got a little packet of extra parts for user adding. There's a few bits for the buffer beam detail. These can be added, but you will have to remove the couplings from the NEM pockets. They do become ready fitted. And then the drawbar. Now, the drawbar is one of the points which I have to say was a major detraction for me. Now, I do understand why Bachmann have gone for these, because there is an electrical pass-through which, once everything's up and running, does make the entire unit a lot more reliable in running. But in terms of getting them plugged together and also getting them unplugged, I find the sockets underneath the coaches to be a little bit fragile, and the actual connection itself very, very difficult to get in, quite fiddly, and you have to be ever so careful not to cause any damage when plugging and unplugging these. There is also a speaker surround in there, and I'll talk a little bit more about the speaker positioning a little bit later on in this review. But certainly the drawbar was one of the two detractions that I found with this unit. Now, it has sprung buffers throughout, including between the cars, which is, it's a nice touch. We've come to expect these, but detail for the sake of detail. I'm not really sure that they are a lot of use, certainly if you use the rigid drawbar between the units, which you kind of have to get the lighting to go on in there. They're never going to come into contact, although there is a very nice close coupling mechanism between the two units, which kind of helps on train set curves to keep the two cars as close together as possible. They're not repeated on the outer edge, where we just see a standard coupling in an NEM pocket attached straight to the bogies. But by and large, you wouldn't tend to multiple these together that much, and certainly tail loads pretty much disappeared by the time we get to the corporate blue era, so not really practical to go with the model in this livery. On the underside of both of the carriages, we can see there is a little switch in there, and this is for the interior lights. Now, both carriages come fitted with working interior lights, and this is just a nice little means whereby you can turn those off if you find them a little bit on the bright side. Also looking to the underside, we can see the difference in the underframe detail between the two different coaches that appear in this set. So we've got a very nice representation of the twin engines and transmission details and exhaust. It's all separately fitted details on there. We can also see the speaker grille. Now, it doesn't come DCC fitted, but it does have a 21-pin DCC socket, and it can easily be fitted with a sound chip, which is designed so the speaker will fit there and your sounds will come out actually from the driving car. So nice little thought gone into that. On the other car, we just have some of the battery boxes and brake reservoir details, so very faithful to the originals. What we can also see is that we've got all-wheel pickup, and these act on the pinpoints of the axles, so shouldn't really get much problem with them gumming up with muck, and also there's not too much rolling resistance from that. But what it does mean is that when we tried running this unit, it ran incredibly smoothly, even over some quite complex point work, because of that multi-wheel pickup over what is actually a very long wheelbase. So that is a very, very good touch. And with the power passing through the drawbar, it does mean that only one DCC chip would be required to DCC the full unit. Now, going back to the corridor connection between the two units, it is very, very nicely put together. And this is one of the huge plus points in my book for this unit. We can see the representation there of the sort of the Corsatina spring-loaded extending mechanism. And whilst it is one solid moulding, from the side it does look like it could be workable. It doesn't, but such is the level of detail. It is just a pleasure to behold. It is powered by a single motor in the driving unit car. That drives down to a single bogie, so traction at times could become an issue, especially if you want to try and run these with a tail load. The motor itself is hidden inside the toilet compartments, which is a really nice touch actually, because they managed to make it fit in there pretty reasonably and use the frosted windows to disguise the fact that it's there. So I think that is really, really quite clever design. Looking to the body sides, most of the handles and detail are moulded relief, but they're very, very finely done. So really it doesn't detract from the model at all. There are a few handrails which are separately applied details, and these are very, very fine and nicely done. On this example, they are very, very well fastened, so there is no risk of them falling out, which is something that some of the offerings from other manufacturers have been a little bit questionable in recent years on this point. The front face of the model is very, very well captured in my book. In this example, it is presented in wraparound all over yellow, which can sometimes be quite a cruel paint finish for highlighting any flaws in a model. The only flaw on this front face which I really could find is that the window glass is a little bit on the thick side, and that does produce a sort of milk bottle bottom effect, but not overly so, and the cab detail is really quite nicely finished in there. The windscreen wipers are separately applied, and then we've got head code blinds which do illuminate. On one end of this unit we have Cambridge, on the other we have Norwich, but I'm sure that an enterprising modeller would be able to get in there and change those for whatever destinations you so desire. Now the window surrounds on the side, these for me didn't really quite look right. Now I've seen in write-ups some debate over whether the windows are quite in the right position. But in this livery in particular, I think it didn't really stand out as being a problem in that respect. What really did come as a problem for me is that these silver painted window surrounds do look to be a little bit the wrong colour. Now, my memory of these was that they were sort of an aluminium-y effect, so there would be a much more matte finish. It's not a huge issue in my book, but certainly the livery application was a bit sketchy in places, and what we can see is it looks like the paint has rubbed off, or at least not been applied quite properly in a few locations, and for me that was something that did stand out and detract a little bit. The rest of the tempo printing detail is absolutely exquisite. The British Rail double arrow logo and all of the other lettering on the sides is really, really crisply reproduced. On the back of the coach we have the TOPS data panel, and that, under magnification, is perfectly readable, although with my naked eye I really do struggle to read it, but such is the finesse of the livery application. It is there, and it is well done. We have the twin exhaust stacks correctly on the power unit only. One extra thing that I'd like to draw attention to is the roof detail. Now, when Bachmann introduced their Mark I coaches, they were often criticised for the overemphasised roof detail ribbing. But on this Class 101, it's all done as rivets, as per the original prototype, and it is actually very, very crisply and cleanly done. And they don't look to me to be in any way overscale. They probably are a little bit, but it's one of those compromises with this scale that actually sometimes you have to make things slightly wrong to make them look right, if that makes sense to you. And it's something that when you scale things down, the eye expects to see something a little bit different. And certainly on these models, they have captured the roof detail perfectly in my mind. This particular model was picked up in the Bachmann fire sale, which has been going on recently, and I paid only £84.99 from one particular online retailer. But I did notice that it's available from a wide range of online and bricks and mortar retailers for around the same price, and it is pleasing to see these units finally come down in price, because when they were introduced, I believe a lot of people did balk a bit at the very expensive price for what is a 2-car DMU unit, and certainly it came in the major price hike period from Bachmann after the release of the Class 105 and 108. So I think people were expecting a different price range from what they came in at. But it's quite telling that Bachmann are now having to sell these at a much reduced rate. In fact, in the case of this particular model, I believe it's around 55% off the full RRP of when it was new. So that says a lot about the way in which people are reacting to the higher prices. Both the British Rail Green and this blue-grey example are available at these very competitive prices. However, if you are looking for a Network Southeast or a GMPTE revised livery examples, or indeed regional railway ones, they haven't been seen around yet in a discounted manner, and it remains to be seen whether they will. Overall, I find this model a really good one. I would give it a good solid 7.5 out of 10. It's certainly been helped by the reduction in price, and it remains to be seen at what price bracket any new releases of these models come in at. But certainly to model anywhere in the Northwest as I do, in any period from the 1960s through until they were withdrawn in 2003, a Class 101 is a must, and I'm quite glad to have been able to pick one up. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope this review has been informative to you. Don't forget to like this video, share it too, and subscribe to the channel. You'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But if you've got any comments that you want to add on the Class 101 from Bachmann, then feel free, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try and answer all your comments as they come. But until next time, you take very good care of yourself, and this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying bye for now.